It started quietly. A few delayed flights here, a few cancellations there. But then, overnight, America's skies fell silent. More than 1,700 flights vanished from departure boards in just 3 days. Airports turned into sleeping camps, terminals packed with exhausted passengers staring at screens flashing the same cruel word: canceled. And no one seemed to know the real reason why. Was it the weather, another wave of infections, or something far more chaotic, something no one saw coming? To understand the full story, we have to look past the runways and into the heart of Washington, where a political standoff has just triggered one of the biggest air travel collapses in recent history. Officially, the Federal Aviation Administration called it a safety measure. They ordered airlines to slash 4% of all domestic flights at 40 of the country's busiest airports. That's roughly 800 flights grounded in a single day. But insiders say the cuts weren't about safety, they were about survival. Because thousands of air traffic controllers and federal security screeners had stopped showing up to work. Not out of protest, but because they hadn't been paid in weeks. The U.S. government was shut down again, and the skies, quite literally, were paying the price. By Saturday, over 1,500 flights were gone, and 6,000 more were delayed for hours. And that was just the beginning. Next week, the FAA says the reduction could jump to 10%. If Congress doesn't act soon, that number might hit 20%. And when that happens, normal air travel could disappear entirely. But that's only the surface, because behind every canceled flight, there's a human cost few are talking about. Inside control towers across the country, silence. Controllers who once guided thousands of flights daily are now sitting at home, wondering how to pay rent. One union leader told CNN his members were being evicted, some families even sleeping in their cars. Imagine being responsible for millions of passengers, yet unable to afford gas to get to work. At the same time, travelers are stranded in airports, sleeping on benches, trying to stay hopeful. One woman in Ohio told reporters she was terrified her flight to Dallas would never take off. These aren't isolated stories. They're symptoms of a system breaking apart, a system that relies on people who can't afford to keep it running anymore. But while the public focused on canceled flights, something else was happening behind the scenes, a corporate scramble that few saw coming. When the FAA's order hit, airlines panicked. American Airlines slashed over 200 flights. United cut nearly 200 more. Southwest and Delta followed suit, trying to stay compliant while minimizing chaos. It was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion, each airline trying to protect its own network, while the entire system collapsed around them. Pilots and crews were left waiting for flights that no longer existed. Airports struggled to reshuffle gates, schedules, and passengers, all while keeping tempers from boiling over. And behind it all, the same question kept echoing through terminals nationwide. How did this happen so fast? Because the truth is, this wasn't just a transportation problem. It was a symptom of something much bigger. A government frozen in gridlock. Every time the government shuts down, critical systems start breaking. Federal employees miss paychecks. Essential workers burn out. And this time, the aviation system cracked first. The Transportation Secretary warned that air traffic cuts could soon hit 15 or even 20% if lawmakers don't reach a deal. That means longer lines, canceled holidays, and billions in lost revenue. It's not the first time either. Back in 2018, a similar shutdown caused massive delays until the public outrage forced Washington to act. Now, history is repeating itself. But with holiday travel just weeks away, this standoff could cause something far worse, a full-scale travel meltdown during Thanksgiving. And that's not all. Even if the government reopens next week, the damage is already done. Airlines have to plan cancellations days in advance, meaning flights will keep disappearing long after politicians shake hands. And the timing couldn't be worse. At New York's airports, the situation is brutal. LaGuardia flights delayed an hour, JFK, over 2.5 hours. Newark, 4 hours on average, with a full ground stop earlier in the day. Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, the world's busiest airport, reported delays of more than 5 hours. Chicago O'Hare, Los Angeles International, and San Francisco all saw hundreds of cancellations. From coast to coast, the same image repeats. Families curled up beside luggage, flight crews pacing hallways, and travelers frantically refreshing their phones, hoping their plane isn't next. Even international routes are in chaos. Amsterdam, Toronto, Tokyo, all reporting spikes in U.S. linked cancellations. For millions of people, it feels like the sky itself has shut down. And yet, as grim as it sounds, some travelers are finding creative ways to adapt. With no end in sight, airlines are scrambling to ease the pain. American, Delta, Southwest, United, and Frontier are waiving all change fees. Passengers can rebook without penalties if they can find an open seat. Some executives are even suggesting travelers book backup tickets on other airlines, just in case. Yes, the situation has gotten that desperate. Experts recommend avoiding layovers altogether. Direct flights only, and always book directly through the airline, not a third-party site. Travel watchdogs suggest checking flight status frequently, buying insurance that covers disruptions, and knowing your rights. If a domestic flight is delayed more than 3 hours or canceled entirely, passengers are legally entitled to a full refund. But even with all these tips, one question remains. What if things don't get better? If Congress fails to reach an agreement soon, the FAA's flight reductions could jump to 15 or even 20%. That would cripple the air network just as the holiday season begins. Experts warn the Thanksgiving rush could turn into a nationwide travel nightmare. And if that happens, the economic ripple could spread far beyond airports, affecting hotels, shipping, and tourism industries across the country. Some reports claim that pressure is mounting inside the White House and Congress to find a quick fix. But negotiations remain stalled, with neither side willing to compromise. Every day of delay means more flights cut, more people stranded, and more chaos in the skies. And even if a deal comes through, rebuilding normal operations could take weeks. Because unlike politics, aviation runs on precision. And once that balance is broken, recovery isn't instant. So the real question isn't just when this ends. It's whether the system can ever go back to what it was before. Thousands of flights canceled, families stranded, workers unpaid, and a government too divided to fix it. What started as a temporary shutdown has turned into a nationwide chain reaction, a crisis that exposed just how fragile the modern travel system really is. Every decision made in Washington now echoes through the control towers, across the terminals, and into the lives of millions who just want to get home. Because when politics takes flight, it's the passengers who crash. And if history has taught us anything, it's this. The skies may reopen, but trust doesn't recover quite as fast. So the next time you board a plane, remember, what happens on the ground in D.C. can decide what happens above the clouds. And as rumors swirl about deeper budget cuts and new safety concerns, one thing's for sure. This story is far from over. What would you do if your flight was suddenly canceled? Would you risk flying this holiday season or stay grounded until things calm down? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you found this story eye-opening, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because the next big shock in the skies might be closer than you think.